Hey guys, what's up? Time for another video. Remember, like, there's like, sub, comment, share, support the channel, and if you appreciate the production value of the FGC on MVC, make sure you leave a like too, because you can't get this kind of quality from any other channel, can you? No, you can't. So, okay, I'm gonna talk about something that I've sort of talked about a little bit, but I don't think I've ever actually made a full video on it, right? And I want to talk about innovations that came in fighting games throughout the years that potentially helped or could help problematic moves, right? And I'm going to do both sides of the argument, though. There's going to be some devil advocate, angel on one shoulder, devil on the other shoulder. I'm going to talk about both sides here, right, too? So again, I've sort of talked about this in videos before, but I don't think I've ever actually made a full video on it. And I'm going to use Guy to demonstrate this, right? And I've always said, I think in the Street Fighter series that when Street Fighter started putting all the Final Fight characters into fighting games, they actually did a really good job. I think the character, although Guy is my favorite, personally he's just my favorite, I don't think he's actually the most well-designed of the characters. I just think Guy is my favorite, but if you look at the Final Fight characters, I think they all, generally speaking, did a really good job when they started introducing them in Alpha and what they did. But Guy has always been kind of a problematic character, even though, again, personally, he's my favorite. He's kind of a problematically designed character. He feels janky, at least in some way, in basically every iteration that he's in, right? So I'm going to compare some different series he came into, and I'm going to talk about one of the main problematic moves, I think, of Guy, if you think about him, is what do you do with his hurricane kick, right? So again, we're going to get kind of deep here, not too deep, not fully balls deep, half a shaft deep here. So in Alpha 1, one of the problems, quotation marked with Guy, that people complain about is his hurricane kick, right? His hurricane kick is too powerful maybe for what it is, right? Has too much priority, it's too invincible, whatever someone might complain about it. You know, honestly, the problem with it is that I think it's just not punishable enough for what it is. The light kick, hurricane kick, I think is it's too hard to get good punishes on it, right? You could probably give it another frame or two of recovery, right? But, you know, to go into storyline of all this, you know what I mean? It is a pretty simple move in what it works, right? You know, if we were to look at something like Street Fighter 4 here, right? The little kick, hurricane kick, it has a bigger hitbox, you know what I mean, on the lower side. It's less vulnerable to lower moves, right? More vulnerable to high. So you do, basically, you know, it kind of goes in stages. Little kick, hurricane kick is what you're doing to beat, you know, pokes, whatever, and fireballs. And if you want to beat anti-air attacks, you have to use the hard kick, hurricane kick, the roundhouse one, right? And the move definitely has weaknesses, right? If you think about the hard kick, hurricane kick is very slow, right? So it's very easy to safe jump, right? But the conundrum of Alpha 1 is safe jumps are only kind of an asterisk mark in the game, because Alpha 1 has this clusterfuck of, are you going to roll or are you not going to roll? Most characters, right? Again, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, can kill you off a roll, right? So there's kind of clusterfuck spazzy feeling kind of nature to Alpha 1. You're kind of like always flipping a coin. Is the guy going to roll or is he not going to roll? Because if he rolls, you can basically just destroy characters in the game. But if they don't roll, you know, what are you going for? Are you going for your supper or not? So you're thinking, wow, this is one of the most safe jumpable moves in the game. It's very slow, but how realistic is it to go for safe jumps when you have to take rolling into consideration, right? So anyway, the move definitely had weaknesses though, right? But if you think about it realistically, you know what I mean? I think the problem with the move is it was just a little bit too hard to punish the little kick version, because the little kick one is too safe, right, for what it is probably, and it goes through fireballs. So what did they do in Alpha 2? Alpha 2, the move is absolute garbage, right? It still has kind of the thing of little kick, you know, better for lower attacks a little bit. You know, you do medium kick, whatever. Or I should say Alpha 2, I think it is. God, it's been a while since I played Alpha 2. Little kick goes through the fireballs, they made it, right? Medium beats the low attacks. Hard kick beats the air attacks, right? But the hitboxes are just so sketchy in it, and they didn't even make it go through fireballs correctly. Like I said, Alpha 2 is such a fucking what a hypocritical game if you've ever played that game and you listen to people talk about that game in ways that it doesn't even work. Like they didn't even test moves in that game, right? You can go through a fireball with guy in his hurricane kick, but they forgot to actually give it a fucking hitbox to hit the guy when they fireball. How do you not fucking test that? I don't know. Developers even test their games. You can tell there's an idea here, but they didn't actually test to see if these hitboxes actually work once you play it. Absolutely retarded, right? So we go into a game like, let's say, Street Fighter 4, right? Street Fighter 4, the move starts to work a little bit better, right? You know what I mean? You can tell, like, we can look at the hitboxes here. Okay, little kick, you know what I mean? Yeah, okay, the hitboxes are a little bit more decent. You can tell it's not just going to get stuffed by a low attack here, right? You know what I mean? And the hard kick version, though, you're like, oh, God, the green hurt box is still here. That's pretty, you could probably, don't you think you could probably make it just cut it off, you know, cut this shit off right here. What are you doing, Capcom? This green box did not, you could probably cut that out. Did you need that right there? Anyway, point is, I mean, I guess the moves work a little bit better in Street Fighter 4. They're a little bit more theoretical, but then you get into this problem of Street Fighter 4 of characters that have strong, basically duck strongs or medium attacks or something like this. We'll take this little dude right here. Blah, blah, blah. If he goes right here, well, you can see, well, you have to use, we probably should have made him a little bit bigger. Let's make you a little bit bigger so they're kind of whatever. His medium punch is actually going to hit guys still his green part of his hitbox. So it's not going to actually work then as a dragon punch that is beating pokes, right? Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. Basically, once you play Street Fighter 4, if you see characters that they actually have large hitting hitboxes in Street Fighter 4, these moves start to not actually work, even though they're still kind of slightly designed better than, say, a game like Alpha 2. In Street Fighter 4, also, I think when I talk about the progression of video games and stuff that I think that is interesting that they also added moves that you can still be hit by attacks, but they added attacks that you're fireball invincible, right? And I think that was a good change because then you have the medium kick, hurricane kick. Not pictured here. I'm sorry. This is the production value on the show. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about, right? They added attacks that are only fireball invincible, right? And I do think that's kind of a fun choice, right? So we have the medium kick, hurricane kick that's your choice for fireballs, right? Now let's look at a game like Street Fighter. I'm bringing this all back together. I know I'm rambling here. I'm going to bring it back together, though. Then we look at a game then like, say, Dragon Ball Fighter Z, right? Fighters, whatever, right? We added these attacks that now, not only are there moves that are just fireball invincible in fighting games, we also have moves that are just anti-air invincible, right? So technically speaking, if we go back and then look at a potentially problematic move like Guy, well, not only do we have moves that are just fireball invincible, we also have moves that are anti-air invincible. So technically, if we were making a game like Street Fighter 4 nowadays, instead of having this wonky hitbox of this move, like, oh my God, I'm so glad. It's like, well, we don't want the guy to accidentally use this move as a poke. You know what I mean? So we got to make sure the green is still here. We could have, for Street Fighter 4, just give it this, oh, we got the little blue. Let's make that bigger. The production values here, leave a like for the production values. We could have added this effect in Street Fighter 4. So now we don't have to worry. You're not going to be using the hurricane kick, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You're not going to be using each hurricane kick, whatever, fixing the hitbox, whatever. Now we have specific moves, right? We have the hurricane kick that only beats lows and pokes. We have the hurricane kick that can only be used for anti-airs, right? Because we have this new effect in fighting. We have the hurricane kick that can only be used for fireballs, blah, 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 right? So there's a specific choice, right? Hopefully you get what I'm getting at. Instead of like, I think that is a progression in games that is a potential workaround for problematic moves, right? Some moves like, but I'm rambling. I'm going to play devil's advocate here again, right? So we see there's a potential problem. Guy's Hurricane Kick, he's not an actual Dragon Punch character. You don't want a non-Dragon Punch character to have the best Dragon Punch in a game. It doesn't make any sense, right? Why is Guy rushing you down, say, in a game like Street Fighter Alpha 1, and he has the best, reversal in the game, whatever. The most annoying Dragon Punch in the game. So games progressed. We can see, Alpha 2 is trash in terms of how they design so many moves, right? But Street Fighter 4, there's a little bit better. There's a little bit of a progression. We can see the medium kick, Hurricane Kick is specifically to go through fireballs, whatever. It's like, okay, so it's not exactly like Alpha 1. Now we want the move to be able to beat anti-airs. Like, this is problematic, but if we think about the games progressing, we could use an anti-air thing like Street Fighter 4, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And of course, again, there's still the conundrum of duck medium punches have too much priority of beating stuff like this. So we still would need to make this a little bit smaller, dude. Cut off just a little bit of this. I don't know how they didn't think of that. But devil's advocate here. Devil's advocate here. There's something we're forgetting what I talked about in the very beginning of the video. Guy's Hurricane Kick in Alpha 1 is not really a problem because of its priority. Okay? It's a problem because of correlation doesn't equal causation, right? Guy's problem, why it's so annoying in Street Fighter Alpha 1 is because the light kick, Hurricane Kick, the risk reward for doing it was not correct, right? It is a very deceptively hard to punish move for what it is. From the mid-screen range that you can use a move like Guy's Hurricane Kick, that you're using to beat random pokes, that you're using to beat fireballs, the recovery on the move is kind of bullshit, right? You could add another frame or two of recovery probably to the move realistically. The problem with the move is not what's beating it. The problem with the move is the risk reward for it, right? Again, correlation doesn't equal causation because the move has risk, right? It's the slowest DP in the game. You can safe jump it. But again, correlation doesn't equal causation. Alpha 1 has the problem of rolls make the game feel very clusterfucky. And because the game is so clusterfucky with how rolls work and how knockdowns work with the game, you don't get to take advantage of a move like Guy having a slow reversal, like say you quotation marks do against a character like Balrog in Super Turbo, whose Dragon Punch is so powerful, but it's so slow. It's a very realistically safe move to safe jump from many different situations. But Alpha 1 is not the same game when you knock a guy down that Super Turbo is. Also, in Street Fighter 4, although we have moves like this, you know what I mean, that combat Guy's Hurricane Kick, whatever, blah, 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 right? In a game like Street Fighter Alpha, moves with just big hitboxes, period, which of course apply to then Street Fighter 4 as well, there are moves that have big hitboxes that you can just meaty Guy and it beats all of his Hurricane Kick options. Look at what I've showed before. And they actually apparently went through a game like Hyper Alpha is such a clusterfuck, but you can tell they tried to actually rework this a little bit because a character like Ken, just doing Duck Fierce roll trap versus Guy, you would think that shouldn't actually be real, but it is deceptively real because Ken's Duck Hard Punch is so thick and meaty, you know what I mean, with its hitbox. And Guy's Hurricane Kick is not legitimately just fully invincible long enough to go through attacks that have that full girthy of a hitbox. And that kind of can just lock down Guy. There are things you can do. I'm not saying there's nothing you can do, but... And if you look at a game like Hyper Alpha I showed, they actually either Shoto's Duck Hard Punches have less of a hitbox, or they actually change Guy's invincibility on the Hurricane Kick to beat some of these meaty attacks. So just by saying that, right, you know what I mean? You're like, wait, again, correlation doesn't equal causation here, right? So now we're like throwing this all about. I'm trying to get into both sides of the argument. So we have this thing. Is the problematic move of Guy's Hurricane Kick being that the move is actually too good? Or is it the context of the game that the move is in? Because then if we think about a game like Street Fighter, this theoretical Street Fighter that we have here, we clean up the hitboxes just a little bit. You know what I mean? Because again, you shouldn't be getting beat by a duck medium punch when you're hurricane kicking it, right? Clean up the hitboxes a little bit. Add the property of a Dragon Ball Fighter Z blue thing, you know what I mean, right here to cut that out. Then we have the hurricane kick that beats all fireballs. Well, if you think about it then, realistically speaking, optimally speaking, although you have three choices, there is never something that you have to get hit by. Do you get what I'm saying? So maybe on a lower level, Guy's hurricane kick would be worse because you have to keep three options in your head. Theoretically, playing the game at the optimal level, Guy's hurricane kick becomes even more powerful because there's literally, whenever you see something or wherever you are making an accurate guess, there is nothing the opponent can do to beat that guess, in a sense. Do you get what I'm saying? Even if you make the move more complicated by having these new options, which I think some of these options are actually interesting, right? Again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Some of these options are interesting. Theoretically speaking, although more complicated, now the hurricane kick is even more powerful because there's never a reason for you to be hit while you're doing it. Where at least in a game like Alpha 1, where the hurricane kick is broken, quotation marks, it's broken because of the context of the game. And maybe should have a little bit more recovery. But the priority and invincibility of the move was never the problem. Do you get what I'm getting at? I know this is kind of a big brain video I'm getting at here. You know what I mean? Hopefully you get the kind of concepts I'm talking about, because I do think actually adding moves that are just specifically fireball invincible, you know what I mean? Adding moves that are just specifically anti-air invincible is an interesting concept that you could add more to Street Fighter. Of course, Street Fighter 4 did have fireball invincible moves, whatever, but you know what I mean? I think it's an interesting concept, and it could be worked with, but it does create the conundrum of, are you fixing moves that are actually broken in the game? Or is the move actually broken, or is it just broken because of the context of how the game is played? Did you get what I'm getting at here? Anyway, remember, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel. I appreciate it. Thanks.